Peace, 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 and welcome to SacredKeyz4U Podcast, where today we have Professor Sehu with us, and he's going to help usher in the energy of our ancestors and our spirit guides with the knowledge and the understanding of the cycles of the moons in connection to our theme, energy goes where energy flows where intentions go. And we are very much excited to have him here joining us on today. Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe. Welcome, welcome, Professor. Once again, glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
So, what we're going to do is first, we're going to allow you to introduce yourself. And then, after you introduce yourself, we're going to pause for a moment for our ancestors and to pour our libations. Ashe.
Ashe. My name is Sehu, which means wise one or one who submits to wisdom. Amen is my last name. Amen Noon, the hidden nature of potential. And I'm also called Sehu, the unapologetic goddess worshiper, because my art revolves around the histories and the mythologies of goddesses throughout cultures. I am the co-founder of Goddess Herstory and also Goddess Herstory Theatrical Ritual Players. We had a group of men of goodwill, along with women, come together on new moons and full moons and to meditate and set our intentions, which is what I'll be talking about today, how to set your intention in harmony with the cycles of the moon.
And once again, we are very much grateful to have you in our presence and be able to teach us your understanding of the science. So, as we get ready to pour our libations to our ancestors, we ask you to take this moment and just call out to any ancestor, any beloved one in which you would like to send energy and life force to. For some, place your hearts, the power of your hand, your palm of your hand on your heart while you call it out. We're going to tap into the intentions of sending energy to our ancestors. So we're going to say to Elaine Talley Boggs, Ashe.
Ashe.
Dorothy Talley, Ashe.
Ashe.
Desiree Hodrick, Ashe.
Ashe.
Fred Wilson, Ashe.
Ashe.
Professor, you have any ancestors you want to call out?
Yes. Freddie T. Jones.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. And to all the ancestors known and unknown, Ashe. And now if we could just take a moment of silence and give reverence and gratitude for our ancestors. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. So now, let me give just a brief introduction as to what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about how our thoughts, attentions, and behaviors respond to the frequency of cosmic energy. We're going to also cover the understanding that energy can be leaked if you are not protecting yourself. We understand that intentions are nothing but patterns of awareness brought to the audience of attention, if that makes sense. Um, the keys of being able to recognize one's own authoritative power is to become intuitively aligned in knowing where you're sending your intentions. What's taking up time and space within your thoughts is sending wave patterns into manifestation, into existence. So today we hope that you all come to a place of clear understanding of what recognizing the patterns of your thoughts and how the things and situations around you respond, react to exactly your thought pattern. Because one thing we have learned is that there are fear patterns, there are control patterns, there are lack patterns, and then there are validation patterns. And all of these patterns that I just mentioned can separate yourself from your higher knowing, your intuition. Is as if these particular patterns take control of your best interest for self. And this is where we find ourselves out of alignment with self, not realizing that our biggest hindrance is not our mothers, or not our fathers, it's not the job, it's not the environment, it's ourselves. Because energy goes where intention flows. What you set your intentions towards brings forth a magnetic pull of energy. And a lot of times we feel a certain vibration, which is an illusion, and we come to want to feed that illusion with these particular patterns. Once again, there's fear patterns, and a lot of us don't even realize that we live in fear. Then there are control patterns. And a lot of times we don't realize that we are very over controlling in situations. This brings forth our unbalance. We have lack patterns where we're not being dedicated enough, repetitious enough. Then we have those patterns where we're always looking for someone else to give the approval, validation. So as we go on through this particular feed today, we want to talk about these things that are causing loop patterns and how the moon, the phases of the moon, why are we always talking about the phases of the moon? How does the phases of the moon affect you in the mind, body, and spirit? And so that's what we have Professor Shu, I'm sorry, not Shu,
Sehu.
Sehu with us today, and been able to take us a little bit deeper. Once again, this is our very own Professor Sehu with Sacred Keys University, and he will and has a class that is within our university. So if you're interested in joining the university, understand that you will have Professor Sehu as an instructor. So this gives you a extra chance to take notes. And once again, look forward to seeing you in the classes. Okay, Professor, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Okay. First of all, I want to answer a question that a lot of people have of me when when I introduce them to parts of the book. I've been doing that to occur so that people will have interest in the book before I fully publish it. In some of the writings, I ask the question that people have asked me. So why the moon? The moon actually has more effect on the tides of the sea over the ocean. And so it has effects also on bodies that carry water. The earth is exactly three-fourths uh, ratio to land, which means that the land only has one half portions of influence over the body. There's an electromagnetic energy that follows the moon, and it pulls the moon. I mean, rather, it pulls the ocean, and it pulls on our emotions and also our physical being. Women have more of a water-based containment in their bodies than men do. So women are often more affected by the moon. As a matter of fact, the first calendar that was ever created was created by a group of women who sat down and began to observe that the moon and their lunar cycles, the menstruation cycles, were in tune with that. And so the first calendar was created based on months, which we still call them months, but month comes from the word moon. You've heard some people say many moons ago, or this moon, next moon. This was the whole basis of the calendar. The calendar was 28 nights per month. I say nights instead of days because the day actually comes before night. And this is the way we actually counted the 24-hour period, 12 hours of it. The, uh, the moon cycle has an effect, as I said, on our physical bodies as well as the Earth's body. And when the moon is at high tide, also people who have mental disorders or people who have uh, depression have a tendency to, when the moon goes dark, be affected and moved by that. Some people have mood swings because of the high activity of the full moon. That's when the moon is actually reflecting a lot of the sunlight. And the uh, the whole idea around my book called the String of Pearls is because the moon cycle, when it's set up in its 28 digits or mansions, different from the solar calendar, which is 12 months, 13 for the lunar calendar. And there are 13 degrees each in each house of the moon cycle, in adverse to the sun, which has 12, 12 houses, and they're made up of 30 degrees each. The lunar calendar is made up of 13 degrees each, and each house is made up of 13 degrees. The number 13 holds a lot of significance for the goddess or feminine aspect of spiritual meanings. There are 13 months, as I said, in the lunar calendar, and when you calculate that 13 times 28, you get 364, which is the length of the year, instead of 365 with the solar calendar. And getting back in touch with ourselves, with setting intentions by the moon, I call living the lunar life. This is when you take note of the moon, just like the first creators of the calendar did, and you set your intentions based on the moonlight itself. The moon is at its darkest point in what we call the first mansion of the moon. That's when the moon can't be seen practically. The next phase of the moon, you can see a little bit more of the light, and that's coming after the new moon, which is the dark. The planting of intentions is done at the dark of the moon because of the fact that seeds in the physical sense begin in the darkness of a woman's womb. Also, the universe itself was created out of a womb, out of darkness, just like we are in our mother's bellies before we're born. Yes, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I
Um,
can't. Oh, there.
okay, give me a minute.
Okay. All right. All right.
Okay, so I had a question in reference to you said so setting your intentions because the topic today is dealing with intentions. So I heard you
Right.
say in dealing with the cycles of the moon, we need to set our intentions. How would someone set our intentions? Because a lot of teachers are teaching about setting intentions, but I don't quite I don't believe a lot of individuals quite get or understand how to set
Right.
an intention. Can you
Right.
elaborate a little bit more on that for us, please?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
The whole idea of setting an intention begins with the new moon. This is when you formulate what it is that you want to attract to yourself. You can either take an image that represents what it is that you want to achieve, and you focus in on this particular image for the entire first half of the moon cycle. That's from new moon to full moon. That's exactly 14 nights. And you each night you nurture the objective that you had, just like you do with a seed, planting it into the dark soil. The darkness is what causes the a child to formulate itself, to begin to have the limbs of the body. And so also your intentions are like a baby, or what I call metaphysical babies, not actual babies, but they take on they take on a life of their own and they become fully manifest at the full moon. So through that 14 days, excuse me, through that 14 nights, you're looking at what happens, similar to what happens when you plant a seed. There's a period where the seed breaks from inside of a shell and you keep watering the plant, not digging it up because that's messing with what the plant is going to do or about to do by nature, which is to develop, first uh, roots and then stems. And then finally, at the full moon, it manifests as a flower or a fruit, depending on what you've uh, given your intention to. We are just like all animals that are vegetarian. We consume our food based on what the nature of us is. We don't have fangs or we don't have a digestive system that can break down food. So also with setting intentions is looking at your diet. The best diet is a vegetarian diet. I've said to people before, not everyone is ready for it, but that is the most effective way of getting your intentions to manifest. The Moon Mandala was conceived by me 28 years ago, and I've been working on collecting information about the book and living the lunar life and getting people to begin to take uh, a little bit closer intention to natural time in relationship to what they do and what they say. Whenever you plant an intention, you don't tell anybody else about it. Don't brag about it or don't bring negative energy to it because that's often what happens. You dissipate energy when you talk about what you've done. You do it in secret, and nobody sees it until it's grown. And let's see, what am I missing? Oh, the use of natural time. There are four universal laws. The law of attraction, the law of periodicity, the period of times, and the law of allowing, and the law of deliberate creation. Those four laws are what you use in order to manifest a particular objective. I know that this works because I've used it in my own life. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment, me and my son, and I started to do this painting, which I had done before. Yes, the Moon Mandala, it's called. And I did a painting that had the Moon Mandala on it. And I focused in on that with an objective of getting myself a bigger place to stay. And I did. I did that for 28 days. And then I got an opportunity to move into a new apartment that actually had a space on the first floor. It was a two-floor apartment. And on the bottom space, I used to teach yoga and we had ritual there. And that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions. No question?
Okay, so well, I thought we was gonna go a little bit deeper. We only been on here 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. You want me
Right.
to keep going?
Yes, you
I
can
think
keep.
it,
We
okay.
like I say, okay. So let's talk about. So one of the things that I have learned throughout my study and practice of dealing with the phases and the cycles of the moon,
Hmm.
right? You have the waning and the waxing of the
Hmm.
moon. Can you
Yes.
give a little bit more elaboration on what does that mean when people say, "Oh, during the waxing of the moon, you might want to do this," or
Hmm.
during the waning of the moon, you want to do that. What do they mean by this? And when you're talking about a string of pearls in reference and connection to the moon, can you just elaborate a little bit more on those phases?
Sure. The first phase is the new moon. That's when you do your planting. There is then the first quarter. First quarter is the first fourth of the moon cycle itself, and the second fourth leads up to the full moon. From the new moon to the first quarter, what you want to do is plant your intention and then just take care of it and make sure that it's healthy and that it's strong. Create, a situation where it's not overcome by outside obstacles, which is why I said you have to keep what your intention is to yourself, or unless you are in a circle of people who are doing the same thing, then you share it to give You give other people to give you energy towards your objective. The the deal with me and the moon mandala is I started every day doing a meditation, staring into the moon mandala and allowing myself to internalize it. The uh, the moon mandala has an image of a woman sitting in meditation on the painting that I did. And this is a reference to how you're supposed to meditate when doing this. You're more receptive when you meditate. It's like when you sleep. But when you meditate, it's if you are having a lucid dream or an intentional dream. When you take into trance, which is what results from sitting in meditation, you go into a state of trance and you're more receptive. And the seed that you planted grows in that kind of environment. After the first quarter comes the full moon. And in between full moon and the new moon, there are other subsidiary phases. These are attributed to the directions: north, south, east, and west, north, northeast, northwest, and southeast and southwest. And these particular uh, experiences that you have with going through natural time and manifesting what it is that you want can be very fulfilling because you see what's happening. You don't always see it, because you're not paying attention to it, which is good. You should you should forget what you planted in a sense and still be attentive to it. It should come as like second nature to fully manifest what you want. So as I said, I manifested a better place to stay and a place where I could actually do my work, a place where I could keep my library. And this is what I wanted. This is what I was energizing. And it didn't look like I was going to get that. It was like wishful thinking. The moon mandala can be an emblem of wish fulfillment, I like to call it, where when you set an intention, it's like a wish that you're making. This thing called the moon mandala that I call the moon mandala could have very well been called a, a garland of roses, which means a necklace of roses, or it could have been called a circle of caverns or caves, based on what tradition you're coming from. Arabs would use the caves, and the roses would be the Asians, and then of course, there's uh, Europeans, because Europeans too are into this kind of uh, this kind of planting in harmony with the moon. And yes, let's see. Is there anything else? There are in the story, this story that I took from the book called Sacred Secrets, which deals with how you manifest and use the energy of the body. If you understand how the body works, the body is an electromagnetic entity. And so our bodies carry a certain level of energy, and this is also spirit. Uh, the story goes that the Yellow Emperor was entertaining these three young girls who were uh, who were learned in the ways of sexual alchemy. He's called the Yellow Emperor because he represents the sun, and the three girls are representative of what we call the three stages of womanhood, which is uh, the virgin, mother, and the crone, which is the older woman. The the virgin is definitely looked at as being a young girl. The name for uh, a woman who hasn't become a woman yet. She's adolescent, and we go through those three phases in everything we want to manifest. In the story of the emperor's three mistresses, they were the dark girl, the plain girl, and the elected girl. And the dark girl makes a monologue. She said, "Here we are. We have the sun. You have the Sun King all to ourselves. We have the Emperor of the Sun all to ourselves. And what should we do? Is it the time for riding horses, or is it the time of stringing pearls?" And this is one of the places that I got my idea for a string of pearls, and my looking at the fact that the three girls represented those three phases of the moon. and they have their relationship to the sun in that they help him to achieve immortality through living the life that he does in harmony with the moon as they teach him. Women have often been the teachers of men in the secret, sacred uh, aspects of sexuality. Sexuality is something that is, it's been overexposed and violated in people's minds as well as in media. But there is a sacredness to sexuality. And plants, it's been found out by this author who wrote the book Secret Life of Plants. He wrote that, plants actually have emotions and they have reactions to what you do physically. Like if you, he said he was planning to try to see if they had any reaction. He put them on a lie detector machine, which checks out people, their breath rate and how they respond to being harmed. And he lit a lighter, and he was like going to put the lighter on the plant's leaf, and then all of a sudden a bunch of activity came up on the lie detector machine. And then when he just acted like he was going to do it, but wasn't, he didn't have the intent. The flowers, they were philodendrons. They weren't flowers. They were plants, but they didn't have any response to him because he didn't have the intention actually of setting them fire. And it's interesting because he kept them on the lie detector machine for a full 24 hours. And he noticed that when he was running, that they had higher activity, almost like they were with him on the run. Plants have a tendency to become very, very affected by our emotions and by our actions. My mother used to keep hanging plants in the house, and she would talk to them. A gentleman, another Asian gentleman, did a test on water. He put water on a petri dish, and then he said negative things to that water. And he said within like days, the water became cloudy and it wasn't clear. He did the same thing, petri dish, and he said positive things like "I love you" and "You're beautiful," and you know, over the course of 7 days, the water still remained pure. So we have to look at what we say to each other and even to ourselves because our bodies being water are affected by the things we say. Cells don't differentiate between, your words and your actions unless they are filled with the energy of fulfillment, of manifestation. The the book goes through uh, the relationship of Black women to pearls. That's one of the things that I tap in on because pearls are created in a particular way. Uh, they have they have a shell on the outside to protect themselves from predators, but they actually exist on the bottom of the sheath, and it's dark, and so that darkness is what uh, makes it conducive for them to create a pearl. The One of the other things that happens with the pearl is that even a grain of sand or a chip from its shell getting into the flesh of the oyster causes it to release a secretion that's called nacre. And nacre is a milky white substance that coats that piece of sand or that piece of the oyster shell, and it does it over and over again as the oyster turns over the grain of sand in its flesh. It makes it uncomfortable, so it does something to soothe itself. So it makes this smooth thing that we now call a pearl. That's very, very expensive depending on what kind of pearl you have. It's interesting though that the black pearl is called the mother of pearls. And so it's more expensive and it's also more beautiful than the white pearl. In another tradition, they talk about a merchant man who went seeking for goodly pearls, who's looking for pearls that were beautiful. And when he found one, which I associated with the black pearl, it was so beautiful that he bought it. He took all of his things and sold them and bought it. The pearl of great price is the black woman. And she, like other pearls, has the gone through an environment that's not been so welcoming to her or so not uh, violating against her. That grain of sand represents like the violation that Black women have had to go through. And, still in the midst of all that, they create something beautiful like a pearl. And that's pretty much what the book is about. It also, no, that's not all. It has 8 core practices which deal with the moon. There's, of course, the study of the moon mandala, which you take into trance, you meditate. Lunar journaling, you keep a record of your experiences when you do meditation. Then there's the lunar breathing, which is a separating of the breath between left nostril and right nostril when you breathe. And then there's lunar yoga, which is the practice of using asanas. In the Hindu tradition, they have a set of exercises like that deal with the moon. As a matter of fact, it's called the moon salutations or Chandra Namaskar. And it has 14 spaces that you chant one of the goddess's names in it. And it's a very, very powerful tool to use with manifesting. The first mantra of Chandra Namaskar is Om Kameshavarya Namaha, which means salutations to she who grants desires. It's interesting that is the first mantra because the setting of intentions is something that you desire or that you want to see manifest or happen. So yes, she who grants desires is what we look for in our planting of seeds. Yes, the book also has with the eight core practices that I call them. Again, meditation with the moon mandala, lunar breathing, journaling, lunar yoga, also lunar divination, the use of the moon cycle as an oracle, and actually a woman's body with the changes that it goes through within a month is actually an oracle. And women were more spiritual than men. Men took spirituality and changed it into religion, but so much has been still encoded in what they do. It's all over. It's all over everything that they do, including the calendar. The calendar has 12 months instead of 13 months, and these are 30 days instead of 28 days. And the use of that calendar is very much it's solar, and it uses the solar sciences of religion. Religion is a patriarchal structure you know, that is more father and more male dominated. Matriarchal is more feminine and it deals with the moon. So those two, when they when they come in contact with each other, the moon and the sun in an eclipse, this is considered to be a marriage of both the masculine and feminine principles. The feminine principles uh, often are looked over as being weaker than each other. The yin principle in the yin yang, I know everybody's heard of yin yang, but that's a term that comes from the Tai Chi, which is not just a Chinese yogic exercise. It's actually a philosophy. And the balance between yin and yang, the masculine and the spiritual, fire and water, is what those two sides of the yin yang represent. And they're represented also in man and woman.
Okay. So, Professor, would you say that the pearls, once again, you did say represent a symbolization of the phases of the moon and the phases
Mhm.
that a woman goes through within her cycle? So, in setting intentions, would you say that the moon would be more powerful during the waning or the waxing of the cycles, or the new or the full moon? Like,
Mhm.
when would be the most powerful time to be able to actually set
Planting.
an intention to see it fully manifest? Like, what would be the best time?
The new moon is actually the best time. As I said, things begin first in darkness. We in the womb begin in darkness. A seed begins in the earth is darkness. And so from the new moon headed towards the full moon, there are different stages that seed goes through, which is a growth process. And you have to look at your growth process in relationship to observing the cycles of the moon. When the moon is waning, that's when the light starts to be less. It's with the full moon, it has the full effect of the sun, and it reflects the full effect of the sun on its surface. And the waning part of the moon, things begin to decay. So if you've ever seen plants that get overripe and they start to turn brown and they rot, that's part of what that phase is. And it happens that way so that, in tune with the natural cycle, there is always a rise and a growing, and then there's a decay. Your objectives will, inevitably they'll fade just like a plant rots. But the plant rots because it's releasing the seed from inside itself, and that's how you get seeds for the next cycle, because the decay of one becomes the uh, the uh, the impetus for setting up a new cycle. So you plant a new seed after that cycle is finished.
Okay. So, what can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So, and setting these intentions, ho- would your confidence have to play a role, or do I just say, okay, well, hey, I want a better place to stay and a better home, and that just be that? Like the actual um transformation of where a person's mind needs to be. Could you elaborate on that? Like, does confidence play a part of having a powerful intention?
Actually, it does, but it doesn't, because what happens is when you take your energy off of wanting something so bad that you obsess over it, you're going to interfere with it. If a farmer plants a seed and goes and digs it up because he wants to see how it's progressing, he kills it. The same thing with intentions. If you keep digging at the intention, having what some call a lust of result, you want something so bad, you can't get any results because you're interfering with the growth. You're interfering with the beginning of the growth of the seed, and that's pretty much what that deals with. There are four universal laws: the law of deliberate creation, that's planting the seeds at the beginning of the moon cycle. Then the law of attraction, which is you're looking at the fact that you've planted the seed in darkness, that inevitably it'll make itself manifest. It starts in stems and roots, and then from there, going to the full moon, you have uh, law of creation, law of attraction, the law of allowing. That's not digging up what it is that you've planted. You don't want to expose what you're doing either too. You want to keep that to yourself, or as I say, go in your prayer closet where nobody else sees. So that is a very crucial part of manifesting. And then there's the law of reciprocity, and that's when you actually get the benefits of what you've planted. Then you can actually take the seeds from what you've planted and begin for the next cycle.
Okay. So I have another question. I have a couple of questions, but
Mhm.
um, so once again in setting this intention and
Mhm.
planting our seeds as you were illustrated, um, would you say the intention has to be accurate
Mhm.
in
Yeah,
order to manifest it into existence? That, or could you just simply just
plant the seed and keep going.
and keep going? Like,
Yeah,
because I
that's
understand
how it
that,
works.
right? Forget it. It's almost like make your intention and forget about it.
Right, exactly.
Right. So how would you actually nurture it though? You see
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like if
Right.
you just forget about it, wouldn't that take away from you
You
having
you
to nurture it?
as the moon starts to wax, coming up to the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start to pay attention to the plant because it's starting to grow out of the ground. It's pushed its way up out of the ground. It doesn't have big limbs or anything yet, but it's what you water when that happens. So you would be exercising the law of allowing by allowing the plant that you've put in the ground, and in this case that you put into your flesh, because there's more that I could explain to you, but it would go far beyond what this this deal that we're talking about now is. The use of the lunar cycle with meditation. This is what really is crucial, to sit down and to meditate. And meditation isn't just sitting quietly and not making sounds. It's literally uh, used with what's called pranayama, or breath control, where you actually measure your in breaths and your out breaths. And you also you close your eyes, of course. It's almost like you're sitting there in the dark. And what you want to do is you want to do meditation to the point where you don't have thoughts. You don't have thoughts chasing in your head, trying to interfere with what you're doing, which is to meditate. You want to be someplace where it's quiet and where it's dark. That actually has the best effects on your intentions, to let yourself relax to a point where you forget about it. It becomes like a non-existence, which is what we
Okay.
all came from. Yeah.
Okay, Professor.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so what about that somebody, I've been diagnosed with ADD and I can't
Mhm.
sit still long enough, and I'll be sitting there trying to meditate, then all of a sudden I got to, like, what would be your advice in helping them to be able to sit still long enough to calm their mind for meditation? Because um, I've come to experience meditation as being very um, challenging far as patience sometimes. Like you get impatient just sitting there.
Yes,
So
yes.
what would be your advice for those who, like you say, their minds, you saying I'm getting to a place of rest, but I'm
Mhm.
trying so hard to get to a place of rest, I can't seem to get to a place of rest. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you have to take it. You have to take it. Take the time and actually sit down and meditate and not focus on other things. That is the law of allowing. When you allow the seed to actually do what it does, because the seed is going to do what it does, whether you come and you dig it up, which if you came back and dug it up, you'd have problems with it. It wouldn't grow anymore. But if you take your intentions and make them without lust of result, meaning you want, so badly for something to happen that you make it worse. You make it unable to actually be manifest. As far as meditation goes, I got to tell you, meditation is like a big part of this. It's a big part of this. That's something that usually you need a teacher in person to teach you. I've taught
Mhm.
people over the internet, WhatsApp and whatnot like that, but it's always better when you have a teacher. I was fortunate to have had a teacher that was very, very attentive to what I was doing, because there's a way that you sit, the way you pose your body in order to be able to relax.
Oh,
Yeah, because
shit.
we have a tendency to breathe at a rate of 18 breaths per minute, and that actually externalizes you. That's the opposite of meditation. Meditation, you want it to be slower than that, like maybe 6 breaths per minute, which sounds like a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot when you're doing it. And in relationship to that, the human being has blood pulses at 72 minutes. So 72 minutes, I'm sorry, yeah, 72 minutes per breath. And that gives you 18 and 72. I use that in part of my name to remind me, of not getting caught into, shallow breathing, because your breathing changes when your emotions change. And when you become aware of that, that helps your seed to actually grow, because the seed is growing inside of you. You set the intention down, but you're setting it down in yourself. Metaphorically, you have to do that, and you have to nourish it in the same way. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Yes, it does, Professor. That answers my question. I'm just really developing questions to make the time go a little bit longer. Because I
Okay,
mean,
that's why.
right, you did a very good illustration, and it was to the point. So
Mhm.
now we're just trying to extend some of the time because I really want people to really understand how energy plays such an important role in how we think in the patterns and how we utilize our thoughts. Because it's so easy to get caught up in what we call loops, right?
Yes, yes.
And these loops have a tendency to be a sequence of patterns that are being constantly, repetitively thought first. Because
Right.
before there is any form of action or reply or respond, there is a moment of contemplation. You know,
Yes,
there's a
yes.
moment where you're observing the
Hmm.
outcome of what it is that you're about to move forward
Hmm.
within. And when we start talking about setting our intentions, it comes to a place of being aware of yourself and knowing who you
Hmm.
are and knowing what you're capable of. And
Yes.
that in itself goes back to like what you were saying, as far as like the shadow work.
Hmm.
When you're setting your intention, stop going back and picking it back up and
Hmm.
holding on to those things. When you can
So,
just simply set an intention, release it, and like you
mhm.
said, within those cycles of the moon, we find ourselves becoming more observant as to what's happening around us. Like you said, certain
Mhm.
seasons, certain things start to happen to certain plants. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
so, like I said, you did a very good illustration of, and understand, I'm just buying time.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, but if I can also go into a little bit more um, and helping people understand the breath and the loops, because a lot
Mhm.
of times, like you were saying, meditation and sitting in our meditation, we sometimes want to really, like the brother or professor said, sitting in silence, um, allowing things to happen and come, going with the currents of the flow. Something
Mhm.
that I'm not sure. I believe you mentioned it earlier too. When the
Mhm.
moon phases come, especially with that full moon and that new
Mhm.
moon, there's a connection with water, right?
Yes. Yes.
And dealing with the feminine energy, which is a chaotic energy, you have
Yes.
those phases. That's going to be a chaotic phase, or it's going to be
Mhm.
a smooth phase, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's
Relaxed.
a relaxed phase,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
So being able to, like you said, that law of allowing things to
Mhm.
come into our lives. A lot of times we don't want to allow things to happen because, as they say, we're trying to still find the smooth way to climb up a mountain. You know
And
what I'm
we're
saying?
taught that. We're taught that.
We're
We're
taught that.
taught to. Yeah. Yes. We're taught that. We only do what it is that we've seen other people do. And under
Mm-hmm.
pressure, this is exactly what happens. The pressure
Mm-hmm.
of wanting to manifest something so bad that you're sitting there and you're holding on to it. When I released my intention in that painting that I did, the one that has me on the side of the painting,
Yes.
yes, I did that painting first. That was the beginning of my meditation to create something. This is also something that I advise to people because I worked within a circle of artisans. We were poets, belly dancers, drummers, and singers, and we pulled off two very good performances as a group. We did the story of Ogun and Oshun, and we set it also to music. And the first place that we performed at was called Solomon's Porch, which I thought was really interesting, considering Solomon was considered to be the wisest man on earth. And were we did a really spectacular job. Before we started to perform, we all encircled arms and looked down into the center. We made a ring and we chanted the mantra Om, and we held it out really long. And you could hear, people who stopped to take a breath, but you couldn't tell it because it's all sounded like one voice. And then we stood up, and everybody that was in the cafe, because it was a cafe, which had a spot for open mic, but we went there to actually tell one of the stories of the goddess. and it was really great. I will never forget that. I will never forget that.
Ashe.
Uh, yes,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go past. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
yes. One of the members who was my partner at that time, and she was a singer and a songwriter, she sat down and because I had been using just chanting Om Kameshwaraya Namaha, she turned it into Om Kameshwaraya Namaha. I mean, it had a melodic tone. And we
Mm,
started to chant that mantra and the other mantras and do the yoga at the same time. So you can see it can be quite intricate what you're doing breathing and doing movement exercises at the same time and controlling your breath. And I found that the students that I only had two students while we were there. No, three students, but they were all in. They were very serious about what they were doing. When it came time after we did the postures, the Chandra Namaskar, the moon salutation, they would lay down on their backs with the head tilted back a little and they would just breathe and breathe first at my directions. And then at some point I would say, okay, now just breathe on your own. Just allow the breath to come in and out like you want it to. And it never failed. There'd be one of them that fell asleep because
mm,
it's just that relaxing. But
mhm,
they gave me a report of what they experienced doing that. Some people saw light, some people only saw the darkness, some people saw ancestors pop up with them because we have the ancestors inside. As a matter of fact, there's some writings about the moon salutations, or rather the moon digits, that says that the ancestors live in each one of those digits of the moon. The circles that you see going around, and yeah, I call it a string of pearls because the moon cycle looks like a string of pearls when you really look at it. And so, we had really, really great success with using, the techniques of breathing and the yoga and journaling. I made sure everybody carried a journal and people started to dream more. So they would write down what would happen in their dreams in their journal. It was a full thing. The only thing I didn't get to fully do, which I'm looking at trying to do before I publish the book, we're like in June. Yeah, the thing that I didn't get to develop more of was the oracle, because there's a way of using the moon mandala of telling you, what spiritual things you need to work on. I don't use things like the tarot or the moon mandala to make money. Yeah, I tell people straight up, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not here to tell you how much money you're going to get for this or that. But if you make your intentions clear about what you want to do with the money, then that's different because you're not focusing on the money itself. They say that the love of money is the root of
mhm.
all evil. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Ashe. Um, we're getting ready to close out for our podcast, but I just wanted to give a couple more hints to being able to set your intentions and what that truly means. Setting your
Mhm.
intentions is not wishing. We need to make
Right.
sure we have clarity and understanding that. And setting your intentions is about sending energy in a direction with a decision.
Right. Yes.
Okay. In a
I couldn't say it better.
direction. Go ahead, Professor. You was to
I,
say.
I, I couldn't say it better than myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the icing on the cake is the consistency.
Mhm.
So once again, I want people to really understand that even though we are saying, yeah, set your intentions and forget about it. Let them, in other words, we're saying give all your problems, situations over to something higher. And when you give it over, don't go back and pick it back up.
Mhm.
Let know that it's been done, right?
Mhm.
But when you do it, your next intention should be the manifestation of that intention already been done. So you shouldn't
Mhm.
be going back continuously for the same exact thing.
Right.
You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I just wanted to make sure people really understand. Once again, setting your intention is not wishing. And another
Mhm.
thing we, especially spiritual beings, have to stop doing. that is very detrimental and is unstable within your alchemy of transitioning and transforming
Mhm.
is stop making intentions off
Public
of your
knowledge.
feelings.
Mhm. Yes.
When you're in your feelings, you are gravitating energy, stagnant energy going into your manifestation, and you wonder why the manifestation only halfway came through. You know what I'm saying? Or it came through, but it came in with a lesson to what attached to
Mhm.
it.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
once again, how you give your offering, it goes back to some of the teachings that we grew up with about having
Mhm.
a grudging heart and having a sincere heart when you set your intentions. Let your intentions be pure because once again, the universe knows the vibration better than you know it. So
Mhm.
there's no fooling the universe when you set your intentions. If your intentions are not pure, you're going to get a lesson that comes back with it.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. And we'll get mad and we'll be mad. Well, I prayed, I did this, I did the ritual, I followed professors, I followed the high priestess, I got the understanding. And key word, you got the understanding, you didn't get the
Mhm.
overstanding of how to
Or
say
or
the
understanding
or
or innocent. Yes.
Ashe, or the understanding of how to set your directions for your decisions of what it is that you're going to be consistent with. We're on
Mhm.
this role of eternal winning, eternal life, eternal blissful happiness. So our manifestations each day are in areas that we have come aware of because why? We're working with the phases of the moon. We're
Mhm.
working with the phases and the tides of our emotional energy, and we are
Yes.
feeling what we need to what? Learn how to redirect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So once again, Professor, I thank you so much for stopping by Sacred Keys for You podcast and setting an intention that's going to help anchor how our actions are being utilized moving forward.
Yes.
Right? We're going to start, and I claiming this for all those who touch and agree with today's message. We're going to start right here and right now, setting intentions without actions, meaning we're not going back and trying to grab it back. And we're
Mhm.
going to set our intentions for transformation, meaning that
Mhm.
once we set the intention, we already know it's done. We can move to the next thing. We're not sitting
Right.
there dwelling with the thoughts over and over again, constantly going in a loop. We're releasing and we're evolving. So, through the cycles of our ancestors and our mothers that came before us, we give gratitude, we give thanks, and we
Yes.
honor them for leaving such natural tools
Mhm.
for us to be able to follow in our transitions of evolving, inspiring out of all of our what's the right words, oppression of
Oppression.
mentalities.
Yes.
We take on the confidence and we embody the power of being aligned at all times with clarity, always
Yes.
being at our intent moving
Mhm.
forward. And with that being said, I love you all. Once again,
You
check us
too.
out, Sacred Keys for You University. We also have the podcast. If you would like to come on to the podcast and share some of your knowledge and your science, we do not discriminate. We offer the opportunity. This is not a religion. Let me say this again. This
Right.
is not a religion. This is not teaching you how to surrender your power to anyone. We're teaching you how to go in and find the purity of self and love yourself unapologetically and being uniquely, divinely who you are created to be, the creator of your own destiny. Once again, you are the generator, the operator, and destroyer of your fate. Don't you ever forget it. We love you. You are the key and you are the kingdom. We love you. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Peace.